We got breaking news in MLB. One of the greatest managers in baseball history, Tony La Russa, will announce his retirement later today, per multiple reports. La Russa retired for the first time back in 2011 after winning the World Series with the Cardinals. That was his third title as a skipper. He was inducted to the Hall of Fame back in 2014, but came out of retirement to manage the White Sox just last year. La Russa returns 78 on tomorrow, has been sidelined with heart problems this summer. For more of this news coming down here, MLB Brain Trust, Jim Bowden. And of course, Jim, we saw when he stepped away back in August, we thought this might be the opportunity for him to step away. But your reaction to this news coming today?
Yeah, look, I don't think the Chicago White Sox front office or owner Jerry Reinsdorf were planning to bring him back next year. And I don't think Tony La Russa wanted Jerry Reinsdorf to have to fire him for the second time in his career. So Tony La Russa making the decision for everybody. And I think it's the right call by Tony. Tony will go down in history as one of the greatest managers of his time. 6 pennants, 3 world championships to his name, 2,899 wins. His return to Chicago didn't go as he would have liked. Of course, he was hoping to win another world championship for Chicago, something he did for Oakland and St. Louis, but wasn't able to do for the White Sox. However, this year, it didn't go well for him. There were a lot of questionable strategic moves that he was making throughout the game. He really wasn't able to keep up with today's analytics, and his ability to communicate and motivate this generation of players just didn't work as well as it had in the previous part of his career. I've been a big fan of Tony my whole career. I'll never forget all the times that I was on the field with him during batting practice before we would play the Cardinals, and I would ask Tony how he was doing, and he'd say, "I'll tell you after the game." And that's really how he was. And he had that same line year after year after year. He loved the game of baseball. He worked really hard to win every single game he managed. And quite frankly, during his time, Brandon, he was one of the best at really mixing and matching in the bullpen. He was really ahead of the curve when it came to analytics when he was managing for Oakland and St. Louis, but now in Chicago behind the curve. And then unfortunately, some health issues. He had to have an adjustment with his pacemaker this year. And I think because of health and really where the White Sox ended up, this is probably the right time and right decision here. But Tony should be remembered for all the success he had as manager rather than his final year here in 2022 on the south side of Chicago.
By the way, of course, you mentioned there night and day from last year. They won 93 games in that division title there with Chicago. Of course, this year, not so much. The age gap you mentioned there, generation with the players. If we're looking at the White Sox, this opening job here, of course, Miguel Cairo took over 13-6, but those 8 losses on the schedule there did not kind of help out with their playoff hopes. But looking at this job opening here, what type of job could this be when it comes to MLB?
Well, keep in mind the last time when they hired Tony La Russa, general manager Rick Hahn wanted to hire A.J. Hinch, who ended up signing a long-term deal with the Detroit Tigers. But La Russa was not Rick Hahn's choice. It was Jerry Reinsdorf, the owner, who chose to bring Tony back. So I think what you'll find is that general manager Rick Hahn and the president of the team, Kenny Williams, I think they'll get together and try to find a long-term manager here. Miguel Cairo, I think, will definitely be a candidate. I've heard Joe Espada's name as a possibility there as well. But they're going to get someone in there that they think can be the long-term answer instead of a 1 or 2 year stopgap, someone that can grow with this team.
Looking at that division, too, by the way, of course, the Guardians won a division in regular season. We already know that. The Twins have traded towards up. And then the White Sox, they were in that picture. But looking at this roster, the way it's conducted now, can they contend next season in the AL East Central there and maybe, trends toward maybe a postseason?
Oh, yeah, this is a team you can easily fix and turn around. I mean, Brandon, one thing to mention, this team had a lot of injuries this year, right? They lost Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert and Yohan Moncada and Timmy Anderson. They all went down for a long period of time. Lance Lynn was on the injured list for a long time. They lost Garrett Crochet to Tommy John surgery early on. I mean, the list goes on and on. They had a lot of injuries. Now, that being said, this is not a good defensive team. This is a team that needs to do a lot of work to improve the defense. They still have a hole at second base. They still have a hole in right field that needs to be solved. And they need to continue to build their pitching staff, which is not as good as it was a year ago when they won the 93 games that you just mentioned. So look, you bring a new manager in, you fix the defense, you add some pitching here, maybe add another left-handed bat, and they will be right back in the mix next year, especially in the AL Central.
All right, we'll see how that pans out there as we look forward for the White Sox here. Jim Bowden is always breaking it down with that breaking news. Tony La Russa is set to announce his retirement today in Chicago. We just mentioned, of course, the 93 wins we saw a season ago, the AL Central title, but of course getting bounced by the Astros in his first year there. But the resume speaks for itself. Already Hall of Famer, by the way, back in 2014, getting in there. Manager of the Year 4 times over his career, 6 pennants and 3 World Series titles to go as he rides off into the sunset once again, this time as a skipper's the White Sox.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.